Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Today we are taking a look at the MC-30 in the latest Star Wars Armada ship breakdown. This small ship is really packing a very big punch, made by the Mon Calamari and finding its way onto our tabletops in Star Wars Armada. If you guys are new here to the channel, we do giveaways all the time. We're still running that big $70 Amazon gift card giveaway for the Shadow Collective core set. Of course, you can use it for whatever you want. You don't have to buy a Shadow Collective core set. But yeah, all you have to do to enter to win that giveaway is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. Also, if you guys are new here, be sure to check the links in the description below. We've got great links down there to help you out. Our Discord, we'd love to have you join if you want to ask more questions, share some of your paint jobs, talk about list advice, or ask other questions. As we also talk about other games like Star Wars Legion, Star Wars X-Wing, Warhammer, Marvel Crisis Protocol, all kinds of stuff like that. It's a very family-friendly Discord. And also, you can check out Crabbok.com down there, as well as other social media links. We got some free Armada content available over on Crabbok.com, like the AI system. If you want to practice builds against yourself, it's a great resource. So today I want to talk about the MC-30 a little bit, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this ship, the two different versions that we have. We're going to talk about the differences between them, how they're alike, how they're similar. We'll talk about the titles for this ship, and we're also going to look at a couple of sample builds and ways that you might run this ship. So if you like what you see here, hopefully you like the video, share the video, give a thumbs up, leave a comment, hit the subscribe, click that little bell for alerts, all that good stuff. You know, it all means a lot to me, and I really appreciate you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. So the MC-30, it comes in two varieties, the Scout Frigate and the Torpedo Frigate. They are both small ships that can go very, very fast. It is generally suited as an anti-ship brawler. It wants to get in there and hit an enemy target at close range, if at all possible, because its greatest strength lies in its black dice. It has upgrades to make black dice work very, very well, that being the weapons team and the ordnance expert, or the ordnance slot, rather, and it has 2 evades and 2 redirect tokens. Now, for a small ship with command 2, which they do have command value of 2, usually you see command 2 ships as having 5 hull, but this version only has 4 hull. But they make up for that with the excessive shields, 3 in the front, 3 in the sides, and 2 in the rear, with 2 redirect tokens to make sure that it takes advantage of all of those shields, and 2 evades that give additional dice cancellation, and that really helps a lot, especially since the Armada 1.5 update that we saw with the Clone Wars coming out. We now have additional use for evade tokens, so they work even better than they used to, which kind of made the MC-30 a little bit better overall, although some of its titles were impacted with that same change. Some got a little bit better, some got a little bit worse, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the MC-30 is very, very fast. Again, at speed 4, it doesn't get too much clicks, so if it's going at top speed, it's going to be going mostly straight. Once it just starts to slow down a little bit, it starts seeing a tremendous amount of yaw. So at speed 3, it's got, it's got 3 yaw. And of course, if you're slowing down from 4 to 3 with a nav, then you'll have even additional yaw if you use the dial. So it can really turn pretty well, even at fairly high speeds. But once it goes into full gear, it's really nice to start out at speed 4 and then eventually slow down to speed 3 so you can get into that great position, get close, and line up a double arc. And it's not too hard to double arc with this ship. Now, the ship is definitely a broadside heavy ship. If we look at the profile for this ship, we can see that the side arcs are very, very wide, and it's going to basically kind of treat it like a broadside ship. But it's got a respectable front and rear arc size. It's not, not necessarily as hard to do front shots as it is with something like a Nebulon, and a big reason for that is the fact that it wants to get close. You'll find that with a ship like this, when you get very, very close to your target, getting that double arc is a little bit easier because you're not trying to line up something from a whole foot away. You're only trying to line up something from like an inch or a half an inch away, and that usually tends to work out a little bit better in your favor if you're trying to double arc somebody. And so that makes for a very fun time. Plus, it's an MC ship, and you can do a lot of cool stuff. And there's titles that are specific to MC ships, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the titles. So now I'm going to talk about the 2 different versions of this ship. We'll talk about what makes them different and what makes them the same. So starting off with the MC-30 Scout Frigate. I normally talk about the cheaper versions of a ship first, but this time we're going to talk about the more expensive version first because it's my show and I'm breaking the rules. So at 69 points, this is the more expensive version. Now, this is kind of expensive for a small ship. It's almost 70 points. That really kind of approaches medium ship point territory. But I think with the amount of firepower that this ship has, it's still kind of worth it because it is a very expensive ship. Again, it's a 2 command, 1 squadron, 3 engineering. That usually means that a lot of times you're not going to be using this as a carrier. MC-30s don't really have a great squadron value. They don't really tend to bring a lot of squadrons. They don't tend to run too many upgrades to help them with squadrons. This is really an attacking ship and sometimes an objective ship, but usually a ship-to-ship, bombardment style vessel. Now, with only 4 hull, it can get killed fairly quickly, so it's going to need to utilize those double evades and those double redirects to making sure that the shields definitely work. And one of the things that really helps with that is if you wanted to put something like advanced projectors. Those have been changed a little bit. MC-30 was one of the first ships to start using advanced projectors, but XI-7 kind of canceled that out, so then they stopped being used. But now, advanced projectors have been changed a little bit more, so this is just one thing to consider running on either versions of the ship, since they do have defensive retrofit. Although a lot of times people don't always take a defensive retrofit with them, but if you're thinking about that, maybe advanced projectors is a potential option. But usually, this is the type of ship that you're going to use other things to help your survivability, like using the new evade token's ability to discard it when you're spending it if it's a bigger ship attacking you to affect 1 additional die. That's one of the great things about an MC-30 having 2 evades. They have a lot more kind of dice removal, and then that really helps. Now, looking at the scout frigate specifically, we're only going to have 1 die in our anti-squadron battery, but where this one kind of has its distinctiveness is in its red dice. So while both versions have 3 black on the sides and 2 black in the front and a black in the rear, the MC-30 scout frigate has a red die in the front and rear and 2 red dice on its left and right sides. This gives it the ability to attack at long range and allows it to keep throwing dice while it's closing the gap to close range. Or if you're playing at a different role, like in an Akbar fleet, this allows you to have a pretty wide side arc shot, and possibly an Akbar slash where you get 1 attack on the left, 1 attack on the right. Or if you want to use the weapons team option here and put gunnery teams on the ship, you can get 2 attacks out of the same side to 2 different targets. If you're using Admiral Akbar, that would be 4 red on each one, and that's certainly an option, although it's not maybe the most efficient ship to be able to do that. And so it's a nice option to do that while you're maybe waiting to close the gap, or trying to use this as a screening ship to prevent somebody else from closing the gap on your fleet. If they get too close to this, they're going to be paying the price with almost double the dice. And of course, well, that rhymed. Didn't that rhyme? Right? If they want to... but yeah, so that's one of the interesting things about the MC-30 is that the red dice that it can throw give it a little bit more, they give it a little more cost, but they also give it a little bit more range and more turns of actual shooting, and so that's good. But the red dice can sometimes be a little fickle in that they have some blanks. So I think an MC-30 tends to work a little bit better in a type of, if you're going with the scout frigate version, it tends to work a little bit better if you're running with some dice mitigation, either through upgrades here, like turbo laser reroute circuits, or in an Akbar fleet, or with other Mon Calamari ships like a Home 1, which can allow a red die to be turned into an accuracy if you really need it, or something to that effect. And so that can be really a good thing to do to mitigate the unreliability of red dice. So this is not really my favorite ship. Its dice do kind of match its upgrades a little bit, in that we have the same versions of upgrades on both ships. We've got officer, weapons team, defensive retrofit, ordnance, and turbo laser. Now, since we have black dice and red dice, ordnance and turbo laser fit the dice profiles perfectly, and that we can do black dice crits, extra black dice, all kinds of black dice stuff with our ordnance. But our turbo laser tends to give us red dice options, which can either give us special red dice effects like rerolls, or things like XI-7, or additional red dice if we want that. And heck, there's even turbo lasers actually kind of do a little bit of everything, because you can even get blue dice potentially out of turbo lasers. But it definitely helps you take advantage of the red dice factor with the turbo laser upgrade at 69 points. Nice. And we've got the MC-30C Torpedo frigate up next at only 63 points. The main difference you're going to find with this one is that it trades in its red dice for blue dice, and still has the same upgrades, still has the same stats. Everything else is going to be exactly the same. Now this one tends to be taken a little more popularly, a little bit more frequently. It's certainly my favorite or my preferred version of the MC-30, primarily because it's cheaper. And it a little bit more, you have like less reliance upon other upgrades to kind of help you out with the bad red dice, because blue dice have no blanks. And blue dice, while they are shorter range, that's not really that much of a problem because of the fact that this ship wants to be at close range anyway. So, you know, once you're at close range, it wouldn't matter if you needed long range dice from the red or medium range dice with the blue. You're at close range, so you would be able to throw whatever you had anyway. So, and a lot of times the blue dice are preferable. You don't have the possibility of the double hit on the red, but you make up for that with the reliability of having results on every side, plus 2 accuracies on each blue die. So you're way more likely to get that crucial accuracy. And nothing feels better than rolling like, 3 black dice that are all hit crits. So you got 6 dice there, or 6 damage, maybe a 7th from like a blue crit, and then you've got an accuracy on the other blue die, and now all of a sudden you can stop their brace, and now they're taking 7 damage. Even if they redirect, that's a whole lot of shields gone, and it feels really good. And so the MC-30, both of them tend to want to use some black dice crit effects, and we'll look at a couple of those in some of our builds, but that's one of the things that makes this ship so good, is that it can potentially deliver very, very heavily with the black dice crits. It has a lot of dice. It has, if you're doing the front side, multiple arcs, you're going to have lots of opportunities to try to get that black crit. And of course, with Weapons Team, it gives you the ability to re-roll. So once we look at some upgrades, of course, we'll probably put Ordnance Experts on this ship. It tends to have Ordnance Experts quite often. Now, we do have some different titles, so let's talk about the titles. Now, first off, we're going to have to go from left to right. We'll talk about Admonition. This one was changed a little bit. They used to both be, the first 2 titles used to both be 8 points, and then we had Mon Calamari Exodus Fleet, which came much later. So the Admonition now has 6 points. It says, while defending, during the spend defense tokens step, you may discard a readied defense token to cancel 1 attack die. Now, this used to be a lot better. It used to let you just discard a defense token, so you could actually discard an orange one, but now you have to discard a green one that's readied. And that makes it a little harder. It makes it like a higher cost to pay to get rid of a die. But it still works along with your evades, which can now actually work at close range. So now you can cause rerolls. So if somebody's hitting you with black dice and they get the 2 black, they get a black double hit, or you hit crit. It's, if they're bigger than you get rid of 1 evade to force them to reroll 2 of those, and then if something else doesn't look right, if you happen to have another defense token as green, you can spend that to cancel another one. You still have the choice, and you get to do that. You can see where your other things land first, and then it kind of helps you make an informed decision on how to keep your ship alive. And also, Admonition can't be targeted with accuracies because it is not a defense token. It's actually your title. So that's another really cool thing about it. The title that used to be taken less, but now is a little bit more popular, is Foresight. I have always liked Foresight, but it definitely got a major boost when it comes to this game in the 1.5 post Clone Wars era. Mostly due to the increased benefit of evade tokens. So what it says is, while you resolve the evade defense effect, you can affect 1 additional die, which is really cool, because that means if you discard the token, you can, and it's a medium or large ship attacking you, you can now get rid of 3 dice, which is insane. Really, really nice. When you resolve the redirect defense effect, you can choose 1 additional adjacent hull zone to suffer damage. So that's also good because you've got a lot of damage that might be coming into you, and you've got a lot of shields all around, so it allows you. But the bigger impact here is for the evades, being able to force rerolls on up to 2 or even 3 dice, or discard up to 2 or even 3 dice is incredible. And that's why it's still 8 points, because it's a very strong title. It gives you a lot of survivability. Now, these 2 titles really give this ship the survivability that makes up for the fact that it only has 4 hull, because it is very difficult to get through those shields and punch through to the hull, because there's so many ways that they have of reducing your damage and kind of spreading it around the ship. It's hard to punch right through that thing because they don't have the pierce keyword. All right, well, I guess Luke Skywalker kind of does. Luke Skywalker could come in there and blow them up. But then they'd have evade to force him to reroll that black crit if he rolled it. So there you go. All right, so we've got a Mon Calamari Exodus Fleet title that is also available. Now, this one came with the MC-75, the Profundity expansion, and of course is also available in the upgrade card collection. But since this is an MC ship, it can definitely take this title, and it's for MC ships only. So again, well, you can have it on an MC-30. You can also be on an MC-80, MC-80 Home 1, MC-80 Liberty, or an MC-75. We got 4 different types of MC ships in this game. But it works off of the engineering command. It says you may choose and exhaust another copy of this card on a friendly ship at distance 1 to 4. If you do, gain 2 additional engineering points. So when you're doing engineering, somebody in your fleet that's doing engineering that happens to have this title can spend this title off of your ship to gain 2 extra engineering points. Now, this is cool because it allows you to support a bigger ship. And again, I remember we talked about like with the scout frigate kind of being that defensive screen. It allows you to support a bigger ship like a Home 1 or an MC, like a flagship potentially, giving them extra engineering points. But then it also turns around and lets you do the engineering command and exhaust their MC Exodus Fleet title. And then you can potentially get, now you already got an engineering value of 3, so then you get 2 more points. That gives you 5. And then maybe even more than that, 6, 7 if you have a token, I believe. So yeah, you can get a lot, and that can help you get your shields back, or if you do get some damage on you, you can kind of get that back. So honestly, MC-30s don't take the Exodus Fleet title that often because they're a little too expensive to kind of be put in the role of a support ship. But I would love to see some people experiment with it. I'm sure that some of you out there have run the Exodus Fleet. I certainly have tried it in a sample build here or once or twice, but I don't think I've ever actually put it on the table with this because admonition and foresight are just too good to kind of not use, especially foresight right now. But if you're running multiple MC-80s or MC-30s, then definitely consider it. It's something that you can keep in mind. I want to talk about some sample builds now, so we'll talk about some different ways that you might run an MC-30, and I'm going to start with just a very, very simple one, kind of taking advantages of its strengths. And if you weren't going to run a title, I kind of like the bare necessities on this ship. I would say are ordnance experts and a black die crit effect. In this case, I went with assault concussion missiles because it's a pretty sexy upgrade with the additional damage on each side. And if their shields are down, then it's just additional damage straight to hull. Lots of additional damage. So it's definitely one of the best crits in the game. And all of the black die crit effects just about are they're exhaustible now. So you're not really going to be able to do it twice. But it's okay. It's still very impressive crit. And that's what you want this ship to do. You want this ship to be able to get in close. And you need the rerolls from ordnance experts, because how many times will you roll 3 dice or maybe even a 4th if you concentrate fire and not get that crit effect? You need some black die rerolls, and if you're able to line up the front shot 2, ordnance experts gives you maximum benefit because you'll be able to reroll 2 in the front and then 2 on the side as well. Now, if we want to start looking at titles, I did talk about the MC version, so potentially a defensive screen. Here's an option for something like that. This would be if you were running, maybe an Akbar fleet and you wanted this to protect the Home 1. You could consider enhanced armament, making that side arc. Like if you're flying it, like your flagship's back here, and then he's kind of in between the enemy fleet and the rest of your fleet. He's in a position to punish people who want to get close to your fleet. And he can start hitting them really far away with enhanced armament. He can, and you could even put gunnery team on this version also if you wanted to. You could put external racks, or in case somebody does get really close, all of a sudden, boom! Now you're facing a tremendous amount of dice. And then I put expert shield techs on here. I mean, you've got two redirects. And you might get hit, like especially if it's at long range and you're able to cancel some dice with evades. You can spend expert shield techs on this ship. This makes for a great defensive officer. Because maybe somebody throws like 2 red dice at you from long range and they get like 2 hits. Maybe you cancel them both. If they're or maybe you don't want to cancel them both because like maybe you don't want to discard your evade token. Maybe you don't have the title that gives you an extra die effect, right? But the expert shield tech allows you to effectively cancel another one by just spending a redirect to just reduce the damage total by 1. It's also actually really good when squadrons come after you, and if squadrons start trying to bomb you, expert shield techs can just be like, no, -1 damage, no, and you keep your shields. So that's really cool, and it helps you stay alive long enough to continue to support the fleet, and hopefully you get to activate and then maybe pop one of their MC Exodus titles and then kind of restore any shields you did lose while standing guard, right? So it's a possibility. It's a possibility. But more than likely, you'll probably run an MC-30 with something like this. This is kind of more indicative of like maybe the old way to run an MC-30 because you have admonition on here. Although, you could do either one of them. You could swap this one with foresight and it would perform just as well. It would perform probably a little bit better. But either way, this is kind of the standard build, right? It's an MC-30 torpedo frigate, blue and black. It's going to move in fast. It's got ordnance experts, and this one I did assault protons, so it's also really, really good, and it's a little bit cheaper. Sometimes that 1 point makes all the difference in the world. We've got admonition on here. Again, that's also a little bit cheaper. We put XI7s on here because while the MC-30 torpedo frigate, the blue dice version, doesn't have any red dice on there, when you certainly could give it a red die, but let's, why not worry about the fact that we've already got rerolls, we've already got blue dice that don't have any blanks. Now all of a sudden we don't have to worry about you redirecting all this damage that's coming in. So I think XI7 is a really, really good turbo laser upgrade for this. If you're going to run it, you don't have to run it. It's a great way to say, hey, if I get an accuracy now, I can target the brace and I don't have to worry about you redirecting to the sides because you can only redirect 1. So and if I end up not getting the brace, I'm still locking out that redirect. So you're still going to have to, or not really locking out, but really limiting the redirect. And we put Lando on here as the ultimate failsafe, right? Admonition is good protection, but in case you're maybe not first player and you get, I've got you in position, I'm going to hit you, but they go first and they hit you, they fire back at you at close range. Lando is the ultimate defensive measure of like, I need to survive this attack so then I can shoot and then get out of there. Lando's at once per game, I'm going to force you to re-roll whichever dice I want. All of those crits or all of those doubles, re-roll all of them, and that tends to work out pretty good. So Lando's pretty much the best officer for an MC-30, and this is a very typical way that people will run an MC-30. Another potential option, and this is if you want to, like, this one is a little more experimental and a little bit more risky, and it's kind of trying to maximize the black dice effect without necessarily the black dice crits. So this is just trying to maximize the damage. I put and also just trying some different things. This one's a little more outside of the box because we just looked at maybe one of the most typical builds. Again, you could swap foresight and admonition if you wanted to, depending on how many points you have available. But I put foresight on this one because this would be another close range brawl build. We put linked turbo lasers on this one because it's MC-30 scout frigate. So we're gonna have red dice. Now all of a sudden we have our own red dice reroll ability baked in, and potentially anti-squadron capability if we want to just pop that for an enemy squadron. But this is one that wants to fly straight at the opponent. We're not as concerned with kind of giving them the side arc because we've got rapid reload, which gives us, or rather, we are more concerned with the side. I mean, you can swap this with rapid reload if you want to go front arc. You could easily swap out rapid reload, and you could put in something a little bit more like the launchers, the expanded launchers, which give you 2 black dice, although those are 13 points. You could do that also, but rapid reload is going to give you a 4th black die on the sides. So you're going to want to get in really, really quickly and have a massive attack. You're going to have 4 black dice on the sides. If you concentrate fire, that's a 5th black die, right? And you've got Caitkin and Sholin. Instead of ordnance experts, again, thinking outside the box a little bit, we've got all of these black dice. I might need to reroll more than 2. And so Caitkin and Sholin can do that. Also, Caitkin and Sholin are in there. They're helping me out at the approach turns when I'm rolling red dice. and I can now all of a sudden I get a reroll with linked turbo lasers. Oh, was that not good? Well, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna attack you at long range. I'll concentrate fire. I'm gonna roll 3 red at you. I'm gonna Caitkin and Sholin all the red dice first, all the red dice that aren't good, and then if anything still comes up not good, I got linked turbo lasers after that. So we've got some pretty reliable red dice on the approach, but then once we're there, we have a lot more black dice. So again, you could swap out rapid reload for expanded launchers if you want. I think expanded launchers could be really fun on this one, but rapid reload's kind of making sure you have the widest coverage in those areas. So if you may even be able to put this one in between enemy ships and get the quasi Akbar slash going in on it. And this would also be a really good one in an Akbar fleet, because not only do you have, could you do 3 dice with a concentrate fire at long range, but you could add 2 to that if you have Akbar. So now you could do 5 red dice with Caitkin and Sholin and linked turbo lasers. You got a lot of rerolls there too. So you have a really respectable dice on the approach, and that could be fun. All right, so that's our look at the MC-30. I want to hear what you guys think. What do you think of the MC-30? How many of you run more than one of these in most of your builds? And let me know if you run more than one. And I'm really curious if any of you have ever run more than 2. What's the most amount of MC-30s you've ever run in a build and or had success with? I would love to hear about that. Let me know down in the comments section. That's going to do it for today's video. Look forward to more ship breakdowns, more Armada content, more Star Wars content, and hopefully some interesting stuff coming out of Star Wars Celebration. It turns out I will actually be there this year, so if you're coming out to Star Wars Celebration, I would love to see you. I may be just teaching and demoing some Star Wars games like I have pretty much every other Star Wars Celebration over the last couple of years. So yeah, that would be a pretty fun thing. So I will talk to you guys later. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I will talk to you soon. Make sure you always tie your shoelaces when wearing shoes with laces. When wearing Velcro shoes, make sure you open them and close them like 3 or 4 times in a row just to make that groovy sound effect.